You're slinging the zinger 6 ways to Sunday. So, tip of the hat to you, milady.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 worst Saturday Night Live cast members.
Yeah, you're going to jail for a long, long time.
For this list, we're ranking the players that really weren't ready for primetime, or late night for that matter. We realize that sometimes the SNL stage isn't for everyone, and the cast members on this list have all had their moments to shine with other projects. However, these SNL alums don't tend to be in the same conversation as some of their contemporaries. Who do you think should have stayed away from Saturday Night Live? Let us know in the comments. Number 20, Jenny Slate. Is it fair to say that Jenny Slate's tenure on Saturday Night Live is remembered primarily for her infamous F-bomb gaffe on the show? Well, yes it is.
You freaking just threw an ashtray full of butts at my head? You know what? You stood up for yourself, and I love you for that.
This is because the undeniably talented and funny comedian didn't manage to make much of a lasting impact beyond this moment during her single-season tenure.
I believe in life everyone should follow their dreams. Thank you.
Her time on the SNL stage was just so short. Slate never really blossomed or explored her role as a featured Saturday Night Live player, and as such, we'll never really know how well she could have done if things had been different.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Pageant Talk. And remember, keep reaching for the stars because stars don't have arms to reach for you.
Number 19, Chris Elliott. Chris Elliott joined the cast of Saturday Night Live back in 1994.
What's in the grab bag?
Alrighty, let's just take a see here. What do we got?
That same year, a Chris Elliott starring vehicle titled Cabin Boy debuted in theaters. This latter piece of media is how we prefer to recall Elliott's comedic profile during this time.
These pipes are clean!
Well, that and Chris's awesome 90s sitcom Get a Life. That's because Elliott never really approached these same levels of surreal silliness with anything he did on SNL. His uniquely quirky comedic voice was potentially never destined to gel with the late-night institution. But don't feel too badly about Chris's one-and-done SNL tenure. He did just fine for himself.
Well, don't yell at me, yell at George Foreman. The whole thing was his idea.
Number 18, Janeane Garofalo. Full disclosure, this is gonna be an apologist type of list. That's because we honestly love so many of these comedians, just not for the work they did on SNL.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Janeane Garofalo's razor-sharp wit is probably best meant for the writer's room or the stand-up stage. It never really felt at home on a late-night comedy show like Saturday Night Live.
Well, I think any business is like that.
Garofalo joined the same 1994-95 season as Chris Elliott, perhaps lending credence to the notion that SNL was attempting to bring in some outside-the-box creative voices. The only thing was, it didn't always know what to do with these types of talented mavericks.
Patty, are you in the mood?
Oh yes, let's do it. Let's do it now.
Number 17, Michael O'Donoghue. Speaking of writers' rooms, there's a very short list of 70s scribes with the sort of anarchic and pitch-black brilliance possessed by Michael O'Donoghue.
Good evening. Good evening.
He was a veteran of National Lampoon and SNL's very first head writer, a man responsible for some all-time classic slices of envelope-pushing comedy. However, O'Donoghue was perhaps never truly meant to be in front of the camera.
Heart attack! Heart attack! Heart attack! Heart attack! Oh my God, the pain!
This was evidenced by the fact that he largely eschewed character work during his tenure, despite initially being credited as a cast member for SNL's first few episodes. We think this was for the best, but celebrate all of the work Michael O'Donoghue put in behind the scenes to make SNL great. Number 16, Brad Hall. You'd be forgiven for forgetting that Brad Hall, aka Mr. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, was ever on SNL.
There's nothing you can say. I've made up my mind. We just gotta stop seeing each other, all right?
All right.
However, you've likely seen his work elsewhere, specifically his time writing, producing, and directing shows like Watching Ellie and The Single Guy. Hall was only a cast member of Saturday Night Live for about a season and a half during the early 80s. During that time, his role was primarily as an anchor for the show's classic Weekend Update segment.
As some of you may have heard, Tuesday is Election Day.
Hall didn't leave much of an impression in this role, at least compared to others who had tried their hand, and his tenure on SNL is largely forgotten by many today.
Well, I guess that's all for tonight.
Number 15, Anthony Michael Hall. The fate of Saturday Night Live was hanging delicately in the balance during its 11th season, with many in the industry wondering whether or not the show would actually be canceled.
No takers at all, Dad. Nobody wanted any. Nobody wanted any, really.
This uncertainty wasn't helped by audience responses to this new cast, which included a fresh-faced Anthony Michael Hall. Hall was only 17 when he joined SNL, and was clearly out of his depth.
That's great. I'm excited. I am.
The rigors of a weekly comedic show can be grueling for seasoned industry veterans, never mind a teenager. Much of Hall's work this season would suffer, and he would leave SNL after it was over.
Back to you, Dennis.
Number 14, Damon Wayans. It almost seems unthinkable that someone as talented as Damon Wayans didn't thrive on the SNL stage, but as we've discovered, this job isn't for everyone.
Well, I just flew in from the coast, and I was thinking, hey, I left LA at 12 o'clock. The flight takes 5 hours, but when I land, it's 8 p.m. I mean, hey, where did those 3 hours go?
Wayans was on the same 11th season cast as Anthony Michael Hall, but was actually fired before the season was even over. This came about as a result of some unscheduled improvisation on the part of Wayans. SNL showrunner Lorne Michaels is known for his distaste for improv. So, when Damon decided to buck what was written and play his cop character as a flamboyantly gay stereotype, he was dropped as a featured SNL player.
If the Parker brothers could see you now, they puke.
Number 13, Brooks Wheelan. Brooks Wheelan probably didn't do his best work on Saturday Night Live.
Hi, Kat. It's wonderful and inspiring to be here.
The stand-up comedian has proven that he's more than capable of making us laugh on the comedy stage, but Wheelan struggled to break out during his tenure on SNL's 2013-2014 season. He did manage to excel at doing impressions on the show, but there were really no original characters for Brooks to make his mark on the stage.
What did Linda comment on that photo?
Looks fun. Where is this?
The comic seems to be doing fine, however. After announcing his firing via Twitter in 2014, he moved on into the world of podcasting in 2017. His show Entry Level is still releasing episodes as of 2023.
Brooks Wheelan, everyone!
Number 12, Charles Rocket. A good SNL episode is only as good as the writing.
Don't you think we need something funny on page 10, Ben?
The 6th season of Saturday Night Live was notorious for the departure of Lorne Michaels, the cast, and nearly all of the writers. New blood was the name of the game. But SNL 80, as it's sometimes known, struggled big time. This could be seen at the Weekend Update anchor desk with Charles Rocket.
Incidentally, the former presidential rivals made peace today when Reagan announced he would follow an old Republican tradition and make his first act in office pardoning Jimmy Carter.
Rocket had proven he could be funny with his Rocket Report segments that were taped on the streets of New York and largely improvised. However, his delivery of mean-spirited and unfunny jokes did nothing to endear him to the SNL faithful. This was a cast member that truly deserved better material.
Looks like a nationwide return to traditional American values and morality, if you ask me.
Number 11, Horatio Sanz. We'd be remiss for not mentioning Jimmy Fallon alongside Horatio Sanz when it comes to their SNL tenure.
Makes no sense, really.
That's because the pair's wall-breaking laugh shenanigans are arguably better known than anything they did on the show.
We got freaking oxygen molecule joined with 2 hydrogen molecules on a covalent bond over here.
Yes, it's true that Sanz was a part of the all-time classic cowbell sketch, but his performance wasn't really part of what made that segment funny. Instead, Sanz felt like more of a distraction, a glass vase that was constantly teetering on the edge of a will he or won't he cliff of grins and snickering.
Don't worry, Jimmy Fallon. I'm gonna get Pepe.
Number 10, Jim Belushi. This cast member wasn't necessarily awful, just mediocre. Expectations were likely high when the younger brother of comedy icon John Belushi joined the SNL cast in 1983, but perhaps this is the reason why his tenure isn't nearly as well remembered.
Okay, let's go right to page 118. This is where you take the lump of coal and squeeze it into a diamond. Okay, Chris, you want to try it? Sure.
Jim never came up with any truly standout characters. However, he did do solid impressions, doing a good enough job to stick around for a couple of years from 1983 to 85. but the mark left by the younger Belushi just wasn't memorable enough to stand out from the crowd.
What you're doing here is a rant. You're getting ready to fall over, and that's your brother's. That's John. You can't do that.
Well, he'd give it to me if I asked him.
Number 9, Tony Rosato.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Tony Rosato enjoyed a place with Saturday Night Live, as well as the classic Canadian sketch comedy series SCTV, but he never quite achieved what you might refer to as a leading status on either program. In fact, it's what Tony did after leaving SNL in 1982 that was far more memorable than anything he did on Saturday night.
Hey, it's no good, Mario. We've tried everything. That warp pipe's blocked for good.
Rosato was the voice of Luigi on 2 classic early 90s kids shows based upon Nintendo nostalgia, The Adventures of Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, proving that it was perhaps voice acting and not comedy that was his true calling.
Cool it, caterpillar breath. I'm not your mama.
Number 8, Gilbert Gottfried. Saturday Night Live 80 was the unofficial title given to the show's 6th season, a tumultuous year that saw creator Lorne Michaels, who was suffering from burnout, being replaced by associate producer Gene Doumanian. Doumanian was forced to hire an almost entirely new cast of comedians and writers, after most followed the lead of Michaels.
Welcome to the public access television, to the show that asks the question,
what's it all about?
One of these cast members was a young Gilbert Gottfried, but not even Gottfried's unhoned talent and unique delivery could save what many felt were needlessly crass and poorly written sketches.
Gun down a suspected murderer, and we'll give you $10,000 cash tomorrow, and you can forget about food stamps.
To be fair, the late Gottfried was also not yet the comedian he would become in future years, and his performance in the cast was yet another misstep for this infamous season of SNL's history. Number 7, Rob Riggle. Sometimes the featured players of Saturday Night Live go on to become repertory mainstays, the backbone of SNL's comedic genius. Other times, they fade away like whispers in the wind, never to be heard from again. Then there's Rob Riggle, who was a featured player from 2004 to 2005, had only one recurring original role, Leviticus the Street Prophet, and a small handful of impressions to his name.
Lord, help me to help you!
Needless to say, the future Daily Show correspondent made little to no impact during his 12 months on the show, and soon left Saturday night for greener pastures on basic cable.
Bro. Hey.
Thanks for being here.
You bet. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
But not so happy that it makes me seem weak.
Number 6, Jay Mohr. Speaking of featured players, the next comedian on our list was only on SNL for 2 years, but at least for viewers of a certain age, it feels as if Jay Mohr was on the show for a much longer period of time.
In Best Supporting Actor, Dickie V's picking Ralph Fiennes from Schindler's List. This guy does it all. He shoots, he rebounds, he's a Nazi. And Best Supporting Actress?
Perhaps this is due to the fact that Mohr never rose to the level of repertory player, or that he did a decent number of impressions on the show.
So many terrific flavors, all here in Skittles. For your enjoyment.
None of them was really enough to elevate him to the level required for those on the main cast, however. You know, those who do most of the comedic heavy lifting.
McDougal is acquitted, but claims the Clintons lost much less than the $68,000 they claim.
As a result, Mohr just sort of got lost in the shuffle. A middling minor cast member who departed the show without leaving any sort of lasting mark. Number 5, Colin Quinn. There have been many hosts of Weekend Update over the years for Saturday Night Live, but none of them sunk the ship faster than former Remote Control alum Colin Quinn. Quinn's delivery on the segment was just awful, his jokes stilted, and his awkward pauses cringe-inducing to say the least.
And those St. Patrick's days, found out. See, you messed me up.
This is a shame because Colin has proven on many occasions to be a funny and charismatic guy, but his tenure here on SNL is best left forgotten. A Weekend Update host who's better left to the annals of television history. That's our story and we're sticking to it.
Thank you for your approval, Mr. Weekend Update, witty comedian, whatever.
Number 4, Randy Quaid. There have been a lot of cinematic heavy hitters who have passed through the hallowed halls of Saturday Night Live.
I will fight the sea! I've had enough! No, Tomato! No, don't be crazy. You cannot win. There are too many of the seas.
We have one big name left to come on our list, but another one that might surprise you is Randy Quaid. The National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation star was only on the show from 1985 to 1986, but had a couple of recurring characters and a number of impersonations under his belt.
So, what can you tell me, Jerry, about meeting the Soviets face to face?
Unlike other classic cast members, however, none of them have stood the test of time as anything truly classic. And Quaid's tenure on the show is forgotten by all but the most diehard of fans.
Save the neck for me, Clark.
Okay, Eddie.
Number 3, Jim Breuer. The next cast member on our list actually did have a recurring character that fans still remember. It's more whether or not they remember it fondly that's the real question.
Sleeping heavenly.
Don't get us wrong. There are plenty out there who recall Jim Brewer's Goat Boy character as great fun, a shining moment from the comedian's 3-year stint on the show from 1995 to 1998.
Well, I just think...
That said, Brewer's work on the show is divisive to say the least, with many just not gelling with the man's loud and abrasive style of metalhead stoner comedy. That said, if Brewer's shtick is your cup of tea, may we suggest checking out a little film called Half-Baked?
Get some sour cream and onion chips with some dip, man.
Number 2, Victoria Jackson. Chalk this next entry up to something similar to the Jim Breuer situation, only replace Goat Boy with your average, everyday, bubbly airhead.
We could drink some eggnog, lay down by the fire. Think of all those tingly things our little red suits could inspire.
This was the caricature to which Victoria Jackson largely played during her 6-year stint on SNL, a run that was definitely a love it or hate it sort of proposition.
Just between you and me, I wasn't really sick. I got breast implants, but I'm okay now.
Sure, we can admit that Jackson's song and dance routines are still a little charming, but the grating delivery and eventual sameness of her characters really haven't aged all too well since her departure back in 1992.
Cancel Mr. Chronic Depression! Call the shrink and cancel a session! Cancel Mr. Chronic Depression!
In this case, absence definitely does not make the heart grow fonder. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1, Robert Downey Jr. Remember how we told you earlier that there would be another silver screen icon who once bombed as part of the SNL cast? Well, here we go.
And I don't want to say that I didn't enjoy Mr. Buckley's book, but it did seem to have a certain quality to it that kind of detracted from the brilliant prose. Michael?
It may seem crazy for younger viewers to imagine today's Tony Stark as an impossibly obnoxious, annoying, and overacting ham, but that is exactly the niche that Robert Downey Jr. comfortably filled throughout much of the 1980s.
Good morning, Skip. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, big deal.
Well, come on, Skip. That's not the Christmas spirit.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, it seems around here like the only person who cares about anybody else, Hildy.
Robert was only on Saturday Night Live from 1985 to 1986, but it was arguably one of the show's worst seasons since its disastrous 1980 run in terms of ratings and reception.
I know why whales beach themselves. Spider-Man told me!
Downey didn't help matters any with his one-note, coked-out delivery either, but thankfully the actor would rebound a year later with a role in the excellent 1987 film Less Than Zero.
I'm just need to recharge our batteries and figure it all out.
Not everybody runs on batteries, Tony.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.